Survivor's Guide to True Crime includes discussions of sexually based violence and is not intended for children. Information provided should not be used as a substitute for professional, medical, or legal advice. Please exercise discretion and self-care. Welcome to Survivor's Guide to True Crime. I'm Kim.
And I'm Kara. Hey, Kim, I like that shirt, girl.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo. I like that buffalo. That's a cute buffalo.
That is a nice buffalo. I like that, right? I'm especially obsessed with the word mark on the side.
So cute. So much. I kind of forgot. So I designed these shirts. For those of you who are listening to the audio version, it is our buffalo tee. So it's a buffalo, it's a black and white buffalo, and it says, run toward the storm.
Yeah.
Rain.
Run toward the rain.
I should know. I designed it, but my brain is that of a goldfish. And then on the arms, it has our little word mark logo. It says Survivor's Guide to True Crime. And we not only have adult t-shirts, we have kid t-shirts. The only difference is the kid t-shirts don't have the arm logo. Just couldn't do that on the smaller little people clothes. So I ordered a t-shirt for Kim and got it sent to her. My husband ordered one. I ordered them for my kids. I ordered them for Kim's kids. I obviously ordered one for me. And I am the last person to get one somehow.
I know.
I just ordered your kids yesterday. They'll probably get theirs before I get mine.
I told them that yesterday. We were talking to you. They order them on the way to school. I pick them up from school. Mommy, has our shirt got here yet? Let me tell you about operations and drop shipping. No.
Yeah, I know. My husband was like, oh, this only came from Charlotte. That's not that far. I wonder why it took so long. I was like, it's a drop shipping. It's like, so they have to like pick it, print it, and then send it. And he was like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So we use a drop shipper. All the merch, it's not just apparel, is on my website shop. I already had a shop on there, so it was just a little bit easier to just put all that on there. So we have merch for the podcast, and then I have some of my own merch, but the buffalo tee is what's there now. And I have spent a lot of time in the last week designing merch and designing in general, because not only did I design merch for the podcast, I designed it for the Patreon.
Hey, can I wear our own Patreon one when it's Kim and Kara's captive audience?
I mean, it doesn't say Kim and Kara, it just says captive audience on it.
True.
So you can do whatever the heck you want. Also, shout out to our very first patron. It's my husband.
I got so excited when I saw that, and I was like, oh, I mean, still great. Thanks, Joe.
I know. I was like, oh, it's so cute. He has like dance mom vibes where he's like, I'm so proud. I'm going to be your first customer.
And I told Mike, and he's like, don't expect me to sign up. It's like, I would never.
No one would. Don't expect me to wear a shirt either with a buffalo on it.
Oh, no. The buffs are huge in our house because we're big Colorado University fans, and buffaloes, the buffs.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, by the way, for including hot pink in the colors, because
you were the whole reason I did that. It's basically just for you.
Also, shout out to my brother, who texted me immediately after I put it on Instagram. He's like, hey, I want a shirt. Pink's great. Like, what? No, there's so many. And he sends me.
I didn't even know he did that. And I got an order and it was your brother. And I was like, oh, that's great. And I was like, what did he order? Because anytime I get an email saying someone ordered, I'm like, what did they order?
Right.
And the same hot pink shirt that Kim got. And I was like, why the heck did your brother order a pink shirt?
I know. And I texted him. I was like, why did you do pink, dork? He's like, I look good in pink. Wow. Okay. So in case you were wondering if confidence is genetic. Yeah. Speaking of confidence, we were getting ready to record and I was just sitting here. Sometimes I really like first cup of coffee, kids are off to school, or it's really early in the morning when nobody else is awake in mountain time.
I'll come
down here and I'll sit and work. And I love being able to sit here, but I will never make video content or take pictures or anything like that unless I have, washed my face or put on some semblance of makeup. And so Kara and I were starting to talk about this and we said, wait, let's save it for the podcast because I adore makeup. I love doing makeup. That is my artistic outlet. It's my me time. Kara does skincare. I do makeup. But I also have realized that it keeps me from creating content. I have a really messed up face. That sounds bad. I got a messed up grill, man. I have skin issues, which I've always had ever since puberty. I don't heal very quickly. It's like a combination of eczema, and then it was
Melasma. Yeah.
And a lot of melasma that took place during my first pregnancy. And it was like my skin has just always been my massive point of insecurity. And so I don't want to be on video. And I also don't want to use filters. Sometimes I'll use them in like a cheeky, fun way, or like the bold glam filter.
Right. Which is how you.
I know. I put it on. I'm like, this looks like me with more of a jawline and actually have lips. It's not for everyone. However, now that I realize that it is keeping me from making content, even when I have a really good idea that I think people would benefit from, you know what popped into my head? Barrett. Barrett talking about perfectionism being a tool of patriarchy. And that's all I can think. Like the people in comments that would be watching a video where my skin looks like shit because, hey, guess what? It's actually due to stress. Fun. I break out in hives. The people who would have a problem with that are men and women who care more about what men think than the actual message. And that sucked. So I was like, I would be making so much more because I have these like amazing thoughts during the day. And I definitely am not going to write them down because, look, squirrel.
Yeah.
But I do video. And yeah, that's just kind of a nice little gut punch for me. So when we were out I was in South Carolina and we went through Charleston. Kara took me to Maya Chia. And I know I put some on my Instagram stories and stuff, but they're really into, I don't know, do your elevator pitch for Maya Chia because.
Sure. And this, by the way, this is not an ad. This is not sponsored content. This is just a brand that I love and is somewhat local to me. I learned about it from my esthetician and started using it and kind of fell in love with it. So whenever I knew that I was going to be in Charleston to take Kim there, I first and foremost scheduled therapy there because my therapist is there. Yeah. Then my second course of action was to reach out to them and let them know I was going to be there. And they were like, yeah, please stop by the warehouse. And when we did, they had this like beautiful setup. But Maya Chia is a safer skincare brand, but very high-end luxury products. The thing that I like most about them, and this is kind of superficial, but honestly, they smell so good. And there's something about using a product that smells so good. It's just like an extra input for your senses and it feels a little more high-end. But they're also extremely effective. And the owner, Suzanne, is an absolute perfectionist. So we went there, they had like cupcakes for us, and it was just the cutest little setup. And they gave us a ton of stuff to try.
I know. We walked out of there. I'm like, I'm going to have to check this because I'll be, I don't think I can put it carry-on wise.
Oh, and I'm like obsessed with all the stuff they gave us. Like, I probably never would have tried the hair stuff because I spend all of my time, effort, and money on my face. I don't spend a lot on my hair. And that's been the stuff, the hair products have been the things that have absolutely blown me away the most.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, not an ad. We just really have liked using it. So this is my first go round with real good skincare. And I'm constantly messaging Kara. Am I doing this right?
She also did tell me before this. She was like, I'm not taking care of my skin. So I need you to shame me just a little bit. And so
I respond well to peer shaming. It's fine.
So then why are you scared to go makeup free? Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
Thank you for this existential crisis on a lovely Friday morning. Yeah, B. It's the hives that I break out in immediately when there's any kind of stress, which sucks. And I know that I need to probably A, address this in therapy, and B, show up a little more realistically. But at the same time, I love doing makeup. It makes me happy. It makes me feel like I have myself put together and best foot forward. And I get a lot more accomplished in the day. I don't know. That's really weird. I don't know if it resonates with anyone else.
I think that's really common for people with ADHD too. They say that if you have ADHD, and especially if you're working from home, if you just get dressed or if you put your shoes on, for a lot of people, it's putting their shoes on. So for you, it's like when you put your makeup on, you feel like you're ready to work. So like for you, that's kind of the switch that is flipped.
It is.
I feel more productive when I'm actually dressed for the day. Like I'm wearing freaking jeans today.
Ew.
And I know, but these are jeans from Express and they're really comfortable. Like they fit my waist and my butt.
My $12 Amazon Basics joggers.
90% of the time I am in workout clothes.
Kara, I am wearing these 5 days a week and I'm doing them, like I'm putting them through the laundry when I have pajama pants on, but these are so comfy. I finally broke down and ordered another pair because I am a child.
So I basically realized that I didn't want to wear any of my clothes in my closet because they all hurt my skin. Because, sensory issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I overhauled my summer wardrobe during the summer, and I overhauled my winter wardrobe this year. And so like all of my stuff, like this shirt that I have on right now, it's from the Loft. It is like a waffle thermal. It is the softest thing ever. My jeans are like buttery soft. I don't wear underwire. I only wear like bras that don't have underwire. And my hair is up a lot of the time because
You're in your
sensory things.
comfort zone.
Yeah, I'm like, I will only be wearing things that are comfortable unless I have a speaking event, and then I'll be uncomfortable.
I know that which seems counterintuitive. We should be at our most comfortable when we are speaking about the things that we are speaking about, but
I know. But we have to look professional. We have to wear heels and blah. So anyway, using Maya Chia, and it's the first time that you have used like nice skincare, and your skin's feeling better, and it like I can tell the difference in your luminosity. For what it's worth.
Good word. I can definitely tell that it's healing quicker. And if nothing else, I'm enjoying the ritual of it. Not like it's majorly time consuming, but it's enough to make me feel like I'm doing something for myself. I don't know what I'm going to do when it runs out, but.
Well, good news is that I do have a code for them. I'm not an affiliate or an ambassador or anything, but I just reached out and I was like, since I'm talking about this all the freaking time anyway, do you guys want to give me a code to share with my followers? So it's just Kara10. Just like our Cured code, because I like to support, especially women owned and operated, created skincare lines. I'm trying to be a conscious consumer. So there you go. Yeah, you guys know that skincare is just like, it's my thing. It's my jam. It's my juice. It's, has an immediate effect on the way I feel about myself. So
we just got a really cool Patreon comment. This is from Brittany, who watched the video version of our first episode that just went live Friday, March 17th. And it's I don't know what to do with my hands. That's okay. It's a podcast. But it wasn't a podcast anymore. But she was saying that she has also discovered skincare and it helps her feel more in her body. So thank you to being obsessed with finding things that improve her skin. Good job. I love that.
Hey, maybe that's also a part of the reason why it's so helpful for me. That's a big part of why fitness is helpful for me, but it makes me be in my body. We're just having all the revelations.
I love our patrons. If you haven't already, please consider joining our Patreon. It is now our favorite place to be, and we're going to be dedicating a lot more energy to interacting and posting content on there than we ever do on social media, because it is a really cool community of like-minded people.
Yeah. And I feel like I was telling my husband, the thing that is the most appealing to me is we're not going to have to deal with trolls, because trolls aren't going to pay to see our content. So it's like, there's only the people that like us and we like you back. So thank you.
No, it's actually great because we're getting a lot of different cool perspectives, and Mountain Time Zone is representing. Let's talk about it.
My goodness.
I know. If you aren't following us, I put something up on Instagram on Saturday about what kind of self-care are you doing? And we had a lot of really good responses. A lot of people are starting to get outside now that it's spring. I was taking a bubble bath, which I never do, with the face mask on. And I was watching Mayfair Witches. Really enjoy that.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's Anne Rice. So I had put this up for people to talk about what they were doing for self-care. And obviously Kara's is skincare. And mine that day was a bubble bath. But it pointed something out to me that everybody has their own way of taking care of themselves. And pointing those out sometimes really helps. Hey, this is what I'm doing and it is for me and I can do it guilt-free and it's something that I can tap back into. And so recognizing what you are actually doing, even if it is as simple as brushing your teeth or going outside for 5 minutes, it doesn't have to be something big. But I think it ties in nicely to our guest today and what we were talking about with her. So today we have Jazz Thornton on the podcast. I have to say, editing this was a freaking delight because I could listen to Jazz read the phone book. I am obsessed with any and all accents, but especially New Zealand. And she just did a really great job of being herself, and it jived completely well with us. But you'll hear in this episode us talk about her trophy shelf. And for those of you that are on Patreon, we're going to upload the video so you'll actually be able to see it behind her. But we were joking about it and there's some dark humor and great things. But it got me thinking after the fact, even if we don't have a physical trophy shelf, should all have some form of a digital or a mental trophy shelf where we pat ourselves on our backs and clap for ourselves every once in a while. Because so often we are told that that's not okay. And Jazz makes a really great point about this, and the culture in New Zealand is downplaying any of your success. Whereas we're saying, no, we want to celebrate that. We want to hear about it. I would love for people to chime in and tell us what are the things, big or small, that you are celebrating this week. So making that mental or digital trophy shelf for yourself, I think can be helpful. And here's how I did mine. I created an album on my app, like my Photos app. And Kara, I know you have one too.
I do.
But it's where I'm storing all of screenshots or messages or things that I've always called breadcrumbs. They are left along this little trail of advocacy and speaking out that let me know that I am doing this work for a purpose. And it fills my heart so that way when I'm gaslighting myself and saying that I'm not good enough, or I don't know why I'm doing this, or I'm not making any money, how am I going to keep our family afloat? And go in there and look at those things that people have said in the lives that have been impacted and remind yourself that you're doing a good job. Yeah. So I love it. I would hope everyone can do some kind of, would you say self-gratification or just like...
So I'm going to kind of give you another sort of example. So I started thinking about this when I was in a small group, and a friend of mine was talking about this idea of Ebenezer's, and it's a biblical idea of how in Old Testament times, they would create these kind of monuments in the desert, and they would call them Ebenezer's. And they were reminders of God's faithfulness. And so she used it in the context of reminding ourselves of the times when God was faithful. And so I kind of started implementing that. And I think it applies one-to-one to what we're talking about, where it doesn't have to just be a trophy shelf. It can be reminders of times when you were strong, or it can be reminders of times that your prayers were answered, or reminders of why you're doing the things that you're doing. So it helps us when we're in those moments of like, what am I doing? I feel like it happens a lot in healing too, because you feel like you're backsliding. You have one bad day and you're like, well, shit, am I not healing? What am I doing? Because, as we know, healing's not linear. And so having that digital trophy shelf, those Ebenezer's, those reminders of the times that you've made it, the times that you've been strong, the times that you've helped others, whatever that looks like for you, whatever feels right. I think that's something that can be so monumental. And it's kind of the same reason gratitude journaling works. It kind of goes back to this lucky girl syndrome of whatever it is you're focusing on, that's what you notice the most. And so if you have a way to remind yourself constantly of what you're thankful for, then you'll see more things that you're thankful for. If you have ways to remind yourself of all the amazing things that you've accomplished, then you'll focus on that. So I think that's kind of the psychology of how it works. And I think it's really great. And it's a life-changing tool to have in your tool belt if you've been through something difficult, or if you're just a human existing on the earth.
Yeah. Well, and one of the other things that I do on the opposite side of that is that I have a folder where I can put negative things. So I know that I need to keep this photo or this recording or this note, but I don't want to see those when I'm going through looking at pictures of my kids or places that we've traveled or whatever. So,
that's smart.
So I started putting it in a different folder so that I'm not bombarded with those things. And it has made such a big difference. My camera roll, like, let me just out myself right now, everyone. I am a digital hoarder. And there's actually a reason for this now that I have figured out. Thank you, therapy. It is because I was gaslit for so long that I felt like I had to keep everything to make sure that my memories of something were correct. I currently have 70,760 photos and 15,731 videos on my camera roll. Apple, step up your game. I'm gonna need more storage ASAP.
I thought I had a lot at 25,000 photos and 7,000 videos. Shows how much I know.
Yeah, your girl's got problems. Whatever. But that's how I maintain my sense of self and sanity.
I love that idea. Like a hidden folder of your negatives that you just need to have. That's genius.
I need to keep it.
You're genius.
Thanks. People call me that all the time. What? A genius? Oh, Patrick. Okay, switching gears here. We're going to be really serious for a second. Today's episode is going to include a massive trigger warning. We are going to be discussing sexual assault as we typically do, but we are also going to be discussing suicidal ideation and self-harm. If this is not something for you, please, please feel free to just turn it off right here. You can join us again next week. But this is an important discussion about overcoming those evil things that we tend to tell ourselves, to believing the things that we hear outside of who we know that we are, and the inspiration and hope that Jazz imparts to, I am not kidding, millions of people, especially in New Zealand and now in the United States and worldwide, is astounding. I really enjoyed this conversation with her. This was my first time getting to talk with her. Kara, I know that you have talked more extensively, but I really appreciated how much she was willing to share because it does impact so many important lives. If you have especially teens or teenage girls in your life, send them this episode. This is going to be a really great thing for them to listen to. And they're going to get some laughs out of this too.
They probably already know who Jazz is anyway.
That's true. She's very popular among the youths. But editing this, when we are like dry heave laughing, you're welcome, everyone. I left my snort laughs in here just for you. Nice. So we are going to be discussing suicide. We're going to be discussing childhood sexual abuse, mental illness, and sexual assault. So if you are not in a place where you are ready to consume those things, please, as always, heed our trigger warnings and take a break before we get started.
Having gone through childhood trauma and mental illness in her teens, Jazz Thornton has now dedicated her life to providing hope, teaching resilience, and fighting for change. Having addressed world leaders at the UN General Assembly in New York and talked with royalty about mental health, Jazz's work has become internationally recognized.
Her story was told in the feature documentary film, The Girl on the Bridge, which premiered in 2020, and through her 3 books published with Penguin Random House. Recently, she received the Point of Light Award from Her Majesty the Queen, was named Young New Zealander of the Year for 2021, and was crowned the 2022 Dancing with the Stars champion.
And now here's our conversation with Jazz. All right. I am so excited to have Jazz here with us today. You guys are going to love this interview. And as always, we start every interview with our icebreaker. So you have to tell us, Jazz, what is the last thing that you binged? Either like a book you plowed through, a podcast, movie, TV series. Yeah.
You're already laughing.
This is so embarrassing. The last thing I binged that I'm currently binging is Love Island UK.
Oh, dang.
I know. It's so, and I love it. Like, unnecessarily love it. Yeah.
If it makes you feel any better,
tell us what you love about it. We need more.
You guys gotta out me like that so fast. Oh my gosh.
But also
it's just so, it's so trashy and it's so dramatic, and you get really invested in people and really invested in their couples, and then you just like, honestly, it's so dumb. But my whole house, like including one of the guys that we live with, we all sit down and watch it at night, like last night, and you get so into it. And then I was away for 2 weeks and I made the entire house stop watching it so that when I got back, like no one else knew what was going on. So
that's amazing.
That's fair.
Well, on that note,
this is like me watching Love is Blind. I feel like every time there's a new season of Love is Blind, I'm like, I don't care, I'm watching it. And my husband's like, ew, what is this? And then he watches it. He's like, God, this is so compelling. I'm like, I know.
It really is. And it also, I feel like it just kind of like, you don't have to think about anything because it's such bad TV. Like, it's so bad that you just kind of mind-numbingly watching it. And then you're like, I don't know, it's just so funny.
Well, yeah, you know it's fake, but at the same time, you're like, but I also want to see what happens in this fake story.
Oh, 100%. But you're so invested. And I work in reality TV. I have done a reality TV show before, Dancing with Stars, but that one was very different compared to, you know, that kind of Love Island show. But I love reality TV. It's so trashy and so fun.
I really don't watch reality TV, but in college, like I had a show that I watched that was total zone out, and it was Bret Michaels' Rock of Love.
Stop it.
God. It is, I can't say I've heard of that.
Massively trashy. Massively. Oh. And like that was the only one where I was just like, my brain is off.
I've never seen that, but now I want to go look at it.
It's old.
It's pretty ridiculous. So we always start out our podcast episodes by asking our guests to share their story of how they came to be where they are, their survivor story in their own words. So we would love for you to tell us who you are and how you ended up here.
So I grew up in a very small town in the South Island called Timaru, here in New Zealand, and everything, unfortunately, kind of from the get-go was kind of setting me up to fail. I was born into a household where abuse was very common, where there was just a lot of stuff going on, very poor, was on something called the benefit here in New Zealand, where if you're not working, then it's just kind of like government assistance. And my kind of earliest memory is when I was 3 years old, and it was standing and watching as my biological dad left and never came back. And I remember kind of the day before, he'd picked me up from kindergarten, and I had wet the bed that night, and then the next day he left and he was gone. And my little kind of 3-year-old brain had like created this thing of, oh my gosh, if I do anything wrong, then people are going to leave me. My dad also, alongside 2 other men in my life, played a big part in sexually abusing me from 3 years old. So as a 3-year-old, it was my biological dad, my granddad, and also my stepdad. Someone who was kind of in my mother's life. And it was all happening around the same time. And my memory is kind of vague of it, but there are things like real core memories that I have of it, and then other kind of stuff that's a bit blurry. But obviously that had a massive effect on me as I began to grow up and kind of went through my childhood years. And I started school and very quickly realized that, home life was not great and school was even worse at times. The bullying started. I remember being like 7 years old, being out on like a playground, and I went across the monkey bars, loved the monkey bars. And when I landed on the other side, there was just like a whole lot of kids laughing. And I didn't know what was going on. And I turned around, and one of the kids piped up, and she was like, no one's going to touch those now because no one wants to catch your disease. And it's something really small for a 7-year-old, but I'm 27 now. That doesn't really affect me. But as a 7-year-old, that really did. There was, so much stuff that was going on at home that I was just kind of battling through, and then having to go to school and being quite horrifically bullied as I got older as well. It ended up getting to the point where I was 12 years old, and I was like, I can't live like this anymore. This is so hard. I'm going to school and school sucks. I'm coming home and there's stuff coming on at home, and I'm dealing with the aftermath of what these 3 older men did to me at just 3 years old. And as a 12-year-old, I made a decision that no 12-year-old should ever make. And that was the decision to try and end my own life. And I remember kind of beginning that process. And to be honest, like, I don't think I really understood as a 12-year-old that this would mean, the reality that my life would fully end. I think I wanted this pain to stop, and I couldn't see any other way through it. And, thankfully, I survived that attempt and ended up going back into school. And about 3 weeks after that, there was this like schools tour that came into my high school, and it was something called the Revolution Tour, and it was like an anti-bullying kind of like hope tour. And there was this woman that was on it. Her name is Esther, and she was sharing her story about the things that she had been through as a kid and her dad leaving and all of these things. And I just sat there as a 12-year-old who had just attempted to take her own life and was like, oh my gosh, I want to do that one day. Like that's incredible. But also I could never do that because look at my life. And so I had that thought and then kind of like left it at that. And kind of everything kept amping up. My mental illness was going through the roof. Didn't at that stage know what it was. And at 16, I got my first ever kind of part-time job outside of school, which was at a fish and chip shop, which is super fun because I'm allergic to seafood. So it was really great. But I saved up money, and I ended up going to my mum and saying, I need to get out of here. I'm leaving home. And at 16 years old, I packed up one suitcase and I moved to a different island here in New Zealand, up to the North Island, to one of our biggest cities, Auckland. I didn't know anyone up there at all. I just knew if I was going to stay down in Timaru, I was going to die. Like that was the reality. And so as a 16-year-old, I came up here. I had nothing. I got put on what was kind of called the independent youth benefit, which is financial help for youth that are no longer in contact with their family. When I left Auckland, I cut all contact is what I needed to do. And I remember thinking at that point, okay, now that I've left my hometown, like everything's going to be fine, because all of my issues were back down in Timaru. And what I hadn't realized was that you can run away from your town, Jazz, but you can't run away from yourself. And those issues began to come up a lot more. And for the first 2 years that I lived in Auckland, I was in and out of what was called women's refuges, which are basically like safe houses for women. I was out on the streets. I lived in 14 different houses. I had enrolled myself in high school, which was ridiculous, and managed to finish my second to last year of high school, but was so unwell that I spent so much time in the psych wards and in the hospitals, and was in a coma for a period of time after one of my attempts as a teenager. In total, it ended up being 14 different times that I tried to take my own life, all of them ending in pretty serious consequences, and an absolute miracle that I'm still alive. But there was one kind of the interaction, I guess, in particular, two interactions in particular, that really kind of helped start my journey of realizing what it was to fight, and to fight through this, because I had been in this pattern for so long. Literally, my life was just ending up out on the streets. And unfortunately, as a teenager, history repeated itself. What happened to me when I was 3 happened again. And I don't think I've actually ever talked about that publicly before, but it was, the same thing happened, and then that spiraled me even more to be like, this is just who I am. And so was, back into the psych wards. And anyway, one of my kind of last attempts that I had, I was really late at night, and I had run into this kind of like park area, and I decided that I had a friend of mine not too long before that who had taken her own life, and she was missing for it was like 24, 29-ish hours before she was found. And I didn't want that to be the case. And I didn't want some member of the public to find me. So I was like, okay, I'll set everything up. I'll call the police to say this is where I am, and then I'll throw my phone and go. So that way the police are the ones that find me and no one else, right? What I didn't realize was that the police were responding to a job right across the road. So the second that I called, they ran in, and they had their spotlights on the other side of the field. And I was like, oh crap. So I go to do what I'm about to do. There's a police officer standing right underneath me, and she heard like a sound, and she ran in, pushed me up, held me up, and officers got me down. And I remember getting kind of carried to the police car. I'm screaming, I'm crying, I'm so mad that I'm still here. But as I'm sitting in the back of the police car, the officer who grabbed me, she's just hugging me. And I'm like, why are you hugging me? And then I eventually look up at her, and she's just bawling her eyes out. And I'm so confused, because I'm like, why do you care? Like, why are you crying? And she said, Jazz, you have so much hope for your future. Like, I know you can't see it right now. You can't see what I see. I'm so sorry that you're in this much pain. Like, I promise you that you can get through this. And I was really confused, because often law enforcement that had been involved with me previously had kind of been like, you're a waste of time. Like, that kind of was the vibe. She came with me to the hospital, and she sat with me until her shift had ended. And then right at the end of it, she got her cell phone number and her work number, put it into my phone, and said, I want you to message me when you're out. I want to know that you're safe. Jazz, you have to make it to your 21st birthday. And when you do, I'm going to come and I'm going to celebrate the fact that you're still alive in here. I completely forgot about that. And on my 21st birthday, lo and behold, Constable Campbell turns up to my house to wish me a happy birthday. It was wild. And so that was kind of a really massive experience for me. And then not long after that was what would be known as my final ever. I decided that, I couldn't do it anymore. This was it. This one had to work. And I was so determined. And, it's a bit of I don't ever go into like detail of it, but to give kind of the reality of it, I had written out my suicide note, and then I had gone into the doctor's office, and in my mind, I was like, I'm a good actor. I can go in and just pretend something is like physically wrong, and that I needed to just get more medication. I had a massive stockpile of stuff at home, but I was like, I just need to make sure 100% that the job is done this time. So I go in, and immediately this doctor is like, what is going on? She knows, she notices. I can't look at her at all. And what was supposed to be a 15-minute appointment turns into a 90-minute appointment. And I'm sitting there staring at the ground, and this doctor is saying, Jazz, this is not your life. Your illness is not your identity. Like, this doesn't have to be this way. I know that you can't see hope right now, but I promise you things will get better. Like, you just have to let us help you. And again, I was so confused because I was like, why does this doctor care? Why is this medical professional caring? Like, usually they, especially with kind of the way that I was presenting, was very like, taking up space of people who actually need it. It's kind of the vibe that I always got. And I was like, what the heck? This doctor is saying that maybe there's hope for me. I don't know. She ended up getting police to escort me down to the psych ward. Police got sent to my house to kind of raid it all, and I got admitted into the ward. And I still have the diary now. Next to the suicide note that I wrote, which was supposed to be my final one, is a journal entry from the next day in the psych ward that is literally like, I don't understand why this doctor cares. Why did, her and the police officer say that there was hope for me? They should know better than that. But if they think there's hope, I'm going to try. I have to try, give it everything. And I did. And there was kind of a key conversation that helped me really turn it around. And it's the basis of my first ever book, actually. It's a conversation with a woman named Esther, who was in my school when I was 12 years old. When I moved to Auckland, I managed to reconnect with her, and she had come into the psych ward. And I remember just sitting there bawling my eyes out, and she's like, Jazz, why are you crying? And I was like, I'm just so tired of fighting. Then she looked at me and she was like, what do you think the definition of fighting is? Because I honestly don't know if you've been fighting. I think you're only surviving. And it's only when you learn how to fight, that's when the change that you're longing to see is going to happen. And I remember being there like, girl, I'm so offended. I've been fighting so hard for the last 9 years. And she was like, Jazz, look at the definitions. And she left. I went back to my psych ward room. I was allowed my laptop at this point. And the definitions I found were surviving was to continue to live or exist in hardship, manage to keep going on difficult circumstances. And that was really important. As we know, survivor's instincts and survival, it's so important. The definition of fighting was to manage to overcome and destroy an adversity. And I was like, The start of it was to engage in a battle or war, fight to overcome and destroy an adversity. And I was like, that's a little bit different, isn't it, to surviving? And I very quickly realized that this whole time that I thought I'd been fighting so hard, and at times I had been, but I had believed wholeheartedly my illness is my identity, therefore it will never change. So I never engaged in anything because I just accepted this was who I am. I accepted that this was going to be my life and then it would end, and that was that. And learning what it was to go, okay, if there's a chance that this could change and fighting's going to change something, then I have to learn how to do that. And so I began to fight. And I did a whole bunch of things. It was a 2-3 year process of really, really engaging in the battle, doing therapy, doing all of the things. And that was kind of the point where I managed to go, what is the thing that I wish that I had when I was, going through that intensive period of time? And I remember spending so much time, which is why I freaking love what I saw of the movie that I just watched, obviously, of yours, Cara, is that I spent so much time in the ward just trying to research people's stories and find anything that remotely was anywhere similar for me to know that there was hope. And I couldn't find a bloody thing back then. There was nothing out there. So I ended up enrolling myself into film school to learn to tell those kinds of stories. I wanted to learn to tell stories that matter. And within 6 months of being at film school, my first TV show got picked up. It was called Jessica's Tree. It was about mental health and suicide, and it ended up winning 14 awards around the world. At the same time, signed a movie deal where they had cameras, probably similar experience, cameras following me for 2.5 years to tell my kind of journey into advocacy. And then the books came, and then Blimmin having coffee with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to talk about the future of mental health and speaking at the UN, and things just exploded so fast. And it was wild. It was so crazy. But everything I now got to do was all the things that I wish that I wish that I could see when I was younger, just to know that there was hope. So my entire life now is, and absolutely everything I do, I just want the message to come across that hope is real and change is possible. Yeah, that's kind of the real long, but very short version, but a long version of my story and how I got to where I am now.
Oh my God.
I was going to say that in there, that escalated quickly.
First of all, what viewers can't see is Kim and I both like being literally moved to tears.
Yeah, I'm glad my video is hopefully fuzzy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I see Kim, reaching for a tissue, and I'm over here with like glimmering eyes and how dare you make us feel the feelings.
We don't do that.
No, but really, I think that this is exactly why stories are important, though, because stories are where it sounds like you found hope eventually, are these stories and the inspiration. And we truly believe that sharing stories has the ability to inspire, to educate, to help people understand that there is hope. And like you said, change is possible. And I love it. I love it all.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm struggling for words. I'm finding that's happening more and more often, which is not my usual jam, but I love that you found a purpose through this pain. A lot of people will get there eventually, but specifically knowing that that's what you're searching for is something I think sets a lot of people apart. And it's you just seeking to save who you were when you were younger and needed someone like you. I really think that that's what everybody's looking for in their healing and finding their voice and using their story to help is, yes, they want to help more people. I mean, I've always just wanted to help one person, but the person I wanted to help most was me at 20 years old. It was probably you at 3 and at 12. And I just feel like you're able to tie all that together and say that you can do that. You just have to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like so many people will be like, Jazz, like, but you're the exception. Like, I could never do that. And I was like, no, I'm not the exception. And you don't have to go out and make movies or write books in order for that to be your story. Like, being able to be open with it with friends and family, or to be able to go and live out your dream job or whatever it may be. Like, success in that or fighting through like that doesn't necessarily look like the things that we're all doing to every person. And I always hate when I hear people say that, like, you're just the exception, and I'm like, you can do it too, like, you can do it.
Yeah, that always sticks for me too, because when people are like, oh, I could never do what you did, and I'm like, no, but you can. Like, don't limit yourself with your words and your thoughts. Like, you are capable. You are worthy. You are capable. You can do more than just survive. You can fight. Like, I think it's such an important message that we just can't stop telling people.
I agree.
And when you look to people who are open and speaking out and doing this, you also have to remember it's not every single day. We're not doing this every single day. There are some days where we're like, I am going to sit with this and I'm going to cry for a little while, and that's okay. That's what we're not putting out on social media and announcing to the rest of the world. It's really hard to do.
Yeah, like I'm still in trauma therapy, and like I'm blooming, and that's I got into my first ever proper like relationship. I met him on Dancing with the Stars, and which was so fun. I know. He wasn't my dance partner, which is apparently the thing that happens on that show. He was my cameraman. And he's great, but like that whole thing came with I was like, oh my gosh, I actually have to deal with all the stuff that I didn't even know was there, because I've never been in this, like, in a relationship like this before. So I thought I had done all the trauma work, but I hadn't. And so I still go to therapy, man. Like, we're all doing it.
Yep. Everybody's doing it.
Everybody's doing it. Yeah.
I still see the same therapist that I've seen since I started doing EMDR as a 21-year-old. And have stuck with her because it's just that really great therapeutic relationship. And heck yeah, like there's been periods where I don't go for a couple of years or something. And then there's sometimes where I'm like, I need to come in every week right now. But assessing.
I so feel that. Yeah, I so feel that.
It's a part of being human and knowing that you're going to go through ups and downs. And sometimes you need a little extra help. And that's all right. Okay, wait.
So fine.
We're not just going to speed past like you didn't just say what you just said. Okay. I don't know about you, but I am feeling extra stressed and I would like to not cut my bangs this time. So, how are you currently dealing with your stress?
When I realized that I was going to be reliving my trauma on a very frequent basis, I realized that maybe I needed something to increase my stress resiliency. I was lucky enough to find Cured Nutrition. I unequivocally can say it's changed my life and how I deal with stress. I know that sounds dramatic, but Cured is a brand that is high quality. They are full of CBD, adaptogens, and functional mushrooms. All three of those go into your nervous system and they actually calm your nervous system. So you feel a little bit more like a freight liner in the ocean, not getting rocked by the waves, as opposed to a rowboat getting thrown all over the place. And my favorite, Kim got to try when she was here in South Carolina, are the gummies.
I loved it. And I didn't expect them to taste so good.
They're my favorite for when you're feeling a little extra stress on top of your day. Cured Serenity Gummies have CBD, just like all of the Cured products, but they also have ashwagandha and L-theanine. Together, those three go into your system and they just give you a nice, tranquil feeling.
I'm so excited to learn more about them and try more of their products now that you've got me hooked.
Yes. And for any of our listeners who would like to try Cured, you can go to curednutrition.com. That's CURED, nutrition.com. And you can use code KARA10 to get 10% off your purchase today. That's KARA10, curednutrition.com. Give them a try and let us know what you think.
Do you love Survivor's Guide to True Crime but can't get enough with just weekly episodes?
Well, we have great news for you then. We started a Patreon and it's called
Kim and Kara's Captive Audience.
We have 3 membership levels: captive audience, dark humor aficionados, and trauma bonded. So you get to pick just how much of us you want to consume. We hope that you want to trauma bond with us, but if not, that's okay. We will gladly accept whatever support you're willing to offer.
And there's even a discount if you choose the annual option where you will get exclusive quarterly merch.
And the merch is pretty rad, I have to say.
I do love it. Rock and roll. And we're going to make sure that we do a lot more live Q&As over there. We're really interactive, but we just love our Patreon community and we hope you consider joining. Learn more and join now by visiting survivorsguidetotruecrime.com or by visiting patreon.com/SGTC.
And for those of you who have already joined, thanks for being part of our captive audience.
Meow. Tell us the love story.
Oh my gosh. So, first of all, have you guys seen Grey's Anatomy?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So this is only so that you get the reference. So first of all, the very first time this boy ever meets me, we're filming what is known as our charity story for Dancing with the Stars. Here in New Zealand, you get to dance to raise money for a charity as well. And my charity was Youthline, which was one of the helplines I called as a kid when I was dealing with everything. And so I had gone in, he was filming me going into the office and so many tears and the people that were on the calls to me when I was 12, 13 years old. And he's finding out, oh yeah, this girl tried to herself multiple times throughout her life as his first introduction to me. And then he starts filming and stuff. And the very first comment I ever make to him is that he looks like Jackson Avery from Grey's Anatomy. And I think he thinks that was me flirting with him, but I was just stating a fact. I was like, you look like Jackson Avery. He's got the tan skin, bright blue eyes, greeny blue eyes. And I'm like, you look like Jackson Avery. And yeah, then he kept he was with me the whole show basically. So he was our camera guy and obviously we went all the way through and won the show. So he was with us the whole time. But he ended up asking me out midway through the show. And I was like, I'm a little bit busy for this, mate. I'm training 11 hours a day. Let's come back to it. Let's rewind, come back to it after the show's finished. And then he started bringing me peanut M&Ms and stuff while we were training. And yeah, I kept saying no because I was like, I'm busy trying to win this show. And after the show ended, I went straight on to a trip to Rarotonga. And when I got back, he asked again. And I was like, fine. And went out on a date with him. And turns out I really, really, really like him. And he's really nice and he's really great. And he had seen a lot of my life, which was kind of scary because obviously his first interaction was kind of, oh, here is the office. And I think the second one, they did this pre-filming package that they do every week. And mine was a meet and greet. And there was thousands of teenagers that just went and swarmed me. And it was this mobbing scene. And he was just standing there with the camera. So I was like, well, at least you know what you're getting yourself into.
Baptism by fire, as we say.
Yeah, well, because I've always been ain't no one gonna want that. And that was a lot even for me to work through in therapy of being who's going to want me after all of this stuff? But then also, who's going to want me and not be able to leave the house without getting stopped all the time? Because New Zealand's so small that literally anytime I leave, I will get stopped like 20, 30, 40, 50 times a day. So I was like, welcome to my world.
You're like celeb status there for the best of reasons, though. Like, these are the types of people that I want to see have that celebrity status. So these are the things that are important, and the work that you're doing and the love that you're sharing with everyone. That's who needs to be elevated.
It's really funny. I mean, most parents now know who I am because of dancing, and all their teenagers were making them watch it. But before that, a lot of parents were with their kids when they met me out in public, and the kids would be freaking out, and the parents are like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, like, what are you known for?" "Oh, I lived, like, I'm alive." Like, it's kind of, I don't know.
Turtle, swim away.
I'm just gonna exit out of the conversation. Yeah, so that's always fun.
Like New Girl, the Nick awkward moonwalk out of the situation.
Yeah, the whole like elevator pitch of how do I explain to people what it is that I do?
Right.
I need to get lessons from you, Cara, because I honestly, like, I will often just be like, oh, I work in film and TV. A few times I've just said I work in marketing because I don't know what to say. And also in New Zealand, we have this thing called tall poppy syndrome, which is like, if you're succeeding, New Zealanders will cut you down. So you learn to never actually talk about yourself or to like talk about the things that you've achieved. I literally won Young New Zealander of the Year and didn't tell anyone that I was up for it or a finalist for it until like the night before. So like, because I was like, there's this thing that I'm doing, but that's just New Zealanders. Like, and then we get taught to do that. So when people ask me what I do, I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
It's so awkward.
Yeah. And there's not a good answer too. Although I will say my favorite thing to do is if I'm traveling alone and I get sat next to or like I'm eating on my own, or just basically anywhere that I have to be alone and I'm semi put together, and you've got dudes, let's be real, that are like, hey, so what do you do? I was like, I speak on best practices for advocacy and prosecution of sexual assaults by predators.
That was so loud. Oh my gosh, I love that.
And it's like, you just watch them internally combust, and the fire dying in their eyes really gives me life. What's wrong with me?
I love that. I love that so much.
It's so great. But I haven't figured out a good way to be like, oh, so friend that I just met that's a mom at school, what do you do? Hi. I don't know.
You don't know.
I foster puppies. That's all I got. I don't know.
I love that we are just communally all in this together of being like,
Yeah,
I don't know. Like,
I lead a teenage like small group at my church. And the first one, we're like getting to know all these teenagers, and they're like, so we ask them all these questions, and then they come back and they want to ask us questions. And they're like, so what do you all do outside of like volunteering for this? Like, what is your job? And I'm like, I don't know how to talk to y'all about this. I'm like, I do a lot of things and we'll talk about it later. Like, that's my whole answer.
well,
I'm
the
like,
good thing is
answer I could have ever given.
now you can just be like, just go watch this. That'll explain it. Just watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need an awkward personal interaction sizzle reel. Like, it's like your business card, but here's this. I hope you feel okay afterwards. Let's circle back.
And I think I will never have like a normal-ish reaction when someone approaches me in public and is like, do I follow you on Instagram? And I'm like, I don't know. Do you follow me? like why am I don't know what you do in the privacy of your life. like why? I don't know.
Oh my gosh. We were in Costco a couple weeks ago, and like, I am totally in my sweatpants after a long day. Mike and I walk in because we're getting a dessert for a thing that we're going to the next day. And this girl comes running up to me. She's like, oh my God, I follow you on TikTok. And like internally, I'm like, oh, how cool. This is exciting. Mike audibly, oh God. And that is the delight.
Oh, a lot of my friends now won't go out with me in public because they're so sick of it. Like, they're like, we just want to be able to go through the mall and do our shopping and not be stopped 12 million times. And I'm like, I can't help it. And I also am not going to turn them away. Like, I hug every single one of them, which when I do like schools and stuff, I literally would hug like 1,000 kids in a day. And then afterwards I'm like, I need to go shower now.
They remember that, like, or they're going to remember that all the time. And like, I can't think of a better person to have those teens who are so lost and searching for something bigger than themselves to look to as inspiration. What a gift you're giving all of them. And I love that at the heart of that, it's so genuine and real and for very valid, important reasons.
Thank you. It's definitely like, I look back at my life and I'm like, I genuinely wouldn't take any of it back because now I get to speak to so many different things and, being able to relate to so many different things, whether it be, sexual assault or whether it be the bullying or whether it be mental illness or all of that kind of stuff. I got diagnosed with PTSD and all of that kind of stuff, and being able to be like, now I get to tell anyone who's struggling with any of those forms of things that hope is real. I'm like, that for me is everything. Like, to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I know it's not going to be just me that's wondering about this. How the heck did you get hooked up with Harry and Meghan talking about mental health? Give us all of the tea.
Yes. Okay, so I had got this email from this woman that was like, hey, are you open to coming to speak at this like youth mental health event in Wellington, which is our capital city? And at that point, I was doing so much speaking stuff and I was like, yeah, like, let's have a conversation. We played phone tag for like 2 weeks. And I kind of was like, I'm so busy right now. Like, I don't have time. But we just kept playing phone tag. And eventually I answered her call. And she was like, so I don't actually want you to speak at a conference. I'm the royal advisor. Harry and Meghan are coming to New Zealand and they want to have coffee with you. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? What? Turns out she had taken royal advisor out of her email signature when she emailed me.
That's what it was.
I know. So they were like, yeah, they're coming over. They want to meet young mental health advocates. And at that point, it was kind of me and my co-founder of Voices of Hope, which is our organization. We literally flew down to Wellington and then sat down and had coffee with Harry and Meghan and talked about like mental health kind of globally and a whole bunch of stuff. And it was so wild. But then after that, like a year after that, I get another call and it was from, I can't remember, it was some guy saying that me and Jen had won an award from the Queen. And so it had gone from that. And then we were supposed to go to the UK, but we couldn't because it was in COVID. And so this award, it's sitting over there. I've got like an award shelf over there that has got me and Harry and Meghan and the award from the Queen that is just arrived in the mail and is sitting there. So it's so weird.
Just as an award shelf, can we please have a picture of said award shelf? Because like, that is amazing.
You can. I feel like if I move this potentially might like ding out, but I'm going to try to see if I can do this without. Can you see the shelf?
Yes.
So that's my Dancing with the Stars trophy there. And then that's the one from the Queen. And that's Harry, Meghan and stuff. And then like Young New Zealander of the Year is somewhere there.
I mean, we're going to send you a ribbon for like Gold Star.
Yeah. So that's my shelf and my photos of, and there's a TikTok award on there too. I won it last year at the big TikTok fest thing for being one of the creators of the year. It was a great time.
Dang. This is phenomenal.
I mean, we need to work on our award shelves.
I don't have a shelf.
You should get a shelf. It is very fun. However, mine doesn't.
I live in a camper, so it's probably, we got like weight constraints. I should probably not lug around awards.
I know, there's so many. I had to get a different shelf because they stopped fitting on the shelf that I had.
This is amazing of the absurdity. Like that is awesome, obviously, but like,
yes,
like, all of this for being alive, like. I know.
I'm sorry, we are so unhinged.
Oh my gosh, I'm crying. It's so funny.
We're crying for a different reason.
Oh my God, we're going to put this in public.
Or like mad hyena.
And Kim's pterodactyl velociraptor is coming out and snort
Oh,
laughing. Oh my God. We promised our listeners dark humor. Here you go.
I honestly, my dark humor is so bad, but I always have to like wind it in because I'm like, Jazz, your audience are like 10 years old half of the time. Be good. Be good, Jazz.
Well, when Kara came out here and we're sitting on my couch talking about student loan debt and stuff, she's like, I don't have any. I was like, because she's like, I don't have any because I got the FBI reward money. I was like, oh, so just a slight kidnapping would have helped me run towards the free candy van. Got it. Next time.
Literally everything. So I'm like, I got a new car and it's like my dream car and I paid for it. And like, I'm going to Italy. And every time something like that happens, I'm like, thanks, Yvonne. It's that's my captor's name. I'm like, thanks for that.
I love that we just communally are like this. This is fantastic.
Drama.
Yeah.
I know, literally.
Trauma.
What were we doing?
Build this back in now.
We were on my awards shelf. Awards, Harry and Meghan and the Queen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, wait. So what were Harry and Meghan like? Tell us.
They were
What did they smell like?
I really liked them.
What did you see what they smell like?
They smell amazing.
Of course.
Harry smelled very like sweet but musky kind of vibes, and Meghan was like just sweet. Like they were great. She drinks tea. She was drinking tea.
Is that a weird question to ask? I don't know. I'm like, what does someone like that smell like? Like, I don't.
Oh no, I will say it when I like do my big like when I'm doing corporate speaking or in school speaking. If I ever bring this up, I will always like do a sideline of being like, he smells really good, by the way, and everyone just bursts out laughing because people want to know.
I do.
Like royalty.
I'm like, I want to know what I smell like to people. So why would no one know what other people smell like?
Yes, yeah. No, they smelled amazing. They're also so nice. And we're actually like really genuinely invested in like youth mental health and kind of like the state of it, both here in New Zealand and globally. I've been working a lot with different organizations around the world and it's been wild, like seeing what's actually going on is nuts. But yeah, they were fantastic. They're really, really, really cool. And I had team Harry and Meghan the whole way. Like they are, having met them and spent quite a bit of time with them in that, I'm like, you guys are amazing. Like you actually care about things.
Oh. Yeah. So talking about the current state of things, we are seeing a ton of reports, at least for the CDC here in the States, about overall mental health for female teens is at an all-time low. You have the highest amount of suicidal ideation. At least 1 in 10 have reported being sexually abused. And social media seems to be at the crux of all of this, playing some sort of role that no one can quite pick apart and figure out. What's your take on the current state of things and what do you do to combat that?
I think it's very obvious that, you know, the current state of things is very, very crazy. I do think it's also really important to kind of note that we are reporting a lot more now than we were 15 years ago. So the statistics are a lot higher, but also we don't actually know how much higher they are because we've got to a place now where people are actually willing to talk about it and they're willing to, you know, say that they're struggling, whereas 10 years ago that wasn't the case. It wasn't something that was talked about. So, you know, these issues have been around for a very long time, but I think social media, I remember when I first got on it, I was shocked at just the access to content that was like around, you know, self-harming and stuff that wasn't at all like in a hope aspect. It was literally like content that hadn't yet been filtered out. And there are so many secret hashtags and like secret things that these communities are using. But I know so many kids that have struggled with mental health previously and then have gone on to something like TikTok and then have seen videos of girls that they're making in psych wards and they've said, oh, I'm not sick enough unless I'm in a psych ward. And then they escalate behaviors. And so I think there's a lot of learned stuff off social media. But I also am like, the reality is it's not going anywhere. Social media is going to be there to stay. And so how do we as advocates, as literally anyone else that is on these apps, how do we make this a place that is hopeful, that can kind of overrun that kind of content with the kind of content that is more beneficial for them to see? But I do think that, you know, what we're seeing is a massive freak out of the amount of people that are struggling, which is so significant and is such a big thing. But I think that it's more people are speaking out now, and people weren't speaking out before. And organizations and governments are now like, oh my gosh, it's because of all these things and we don't have the resources. And it's like, no, you've just never let people talk about it, and you've never kind of, so yeah, it's heartbreaking to see what's going on. I have like literally in my car at the moment, so many kids like suicide notes or blades that were in the back of their phone cases when I do schools tours, and like all of these things that is going on. But I just think at the moment, the most important tool is hope to combat it and stories to combat it as much as possible. But it's pretty freaking heart-wrenching to see.
Yeah.
So we hear about, I'm not going to say this the right way. It's not hive mentality. Help me out. It's when it's reported upon or spoken about more, you see more people. Oh God, why is this escaping me right now?
Trying.
Do you know what I'm talking about here?
I don't know.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like attempts increase. So
yeah,
we had a student at our local high school who completed suicide. They did not report on it because it would spread more ideation or like completion or self-harm. I'm going to have to look it up.
I think I know what you're talking about, that it's the contagion effect.
Thank you. Yes.
It's now this is very interesting, because I think that I really struggle when schools, and here in New Zealand anyway, when schools don't talk about it at all with their students when it's happened. There was one school in particular that had someone who died by a car crash, and they did like a full school assembly and stuff so that they could go through it. And then the week later, somebody died by suicide, and they never said a thing. And I was like, this is really difficult, because this person's life ended by mental illness at the end. Like, it was the end of them for that. And now anyone who is struggling automatically feels silence. These kids don't feel like they can talk about it. They don't feel like they can talk to adults about it, because there's so much silence put around it, that it's kind of measuring the risk of contagion, but also silence that then will lead to further suicides as well. And so it's such a balancing act of like, contagion is a very real thing, but so is creating silence. And I think when it comes to things like schools and stuff, it's so hard to do that, because some kids are, when the girl who died by a car accident and then the one who died by suicide, complete opposite, not spoken about in classes or anything. It was like, yeah, it's tricky. It's real tricky.
Yeah. I think that there is a whole stigma around self-harm and suicide anyway. I've experienced this with people that I've been close to that I've lost via suicide. And it's like, if someone dies in a car wreck or they die because they had any other illness, like you said, it's in their obituary and we're talking about it at the funeral. And then if they died by suicide, you don't hear anything about how they died. And it's like, it's just this dirty little secret. And I think anytime we as a community of humans don't feel comfortable talking about something so difficult, then we stand no chance of even beginning to heal it.
Yeah. No, I agree completely.
I know that you have a gigantic following of like young people, and this is something that's relatively new to me, because the girl that played me in my movie has a gigantic younger fan base. And so they have begun to arrive on my social media, and it's a very different type of audience. And I'm just curious, kind of a little bit of how you handle that. What do you say to people? I had a girl who sent me a message who was 12 a couple of days ago, who said that she self-harms, her mom doesn't know, and she doesn't even think that her life is worth living. And this is the first time that I had someone really disclose that. And I previously worked in law enforcement. So of course my mandated reporter heart is like, well, I have to do something with this. I have to tell someone. And then the reality is, I don't know how to handle these things. So I'm not sort of asking you for advice, but also asking you to just speak to like anyone who feels that way, or, anyone, or like the younger version of yourself too.
Yeah, teenagers are a different breed in the nicest way possible. Like, I love them so much, but they've got a lot going on, and they've grown up with, pandemics and schools being changed, and then everything that's going on has been wild. And something that I've had to implement, that I think you're probably going to have to implement as well, Cara, just for your own kind of safety and kind of state of mind. And I don't reply or look at any of my DMs, which is really, really difficult. And I had to make that decision kind of earlier on when I was probably at similar like TikTok followers to like, it was earlier on. And that was because I would find myself getting into the savior mentality of I have to do everything I can to save and help this person, which is what you would experience with the mandating of like, I have to do something. But when it starts with one, I now will have thousands every week in my DMs that are like that. And I want to help every single person that I can. But I had to come to understand that what my role is to provide hope, is to storytell. My job is not to save. There are other people, there are professionals there that are the ones that can actually be there to help. And I remember it was actually Esther that sat me down and was like, because I was at the hospital like literally every night of the week with kids I didn't even know, trying to get them help. And she was like, you can do that, sure, but you have to pick. You can't do the one and then do the millions. Like that's going to mentally, that's not, you can't do that. So you can pick, you can go out and you can do the one, which is what you were already doing with law enforcement, or you can use your story and you can help the millions, knowing that there are going to be other people that are a different piece of the puzzle that are going to be able to provide the help. So I have like auto replies on, but also a thing up that just people know that I don't reply to my DMs. And it sucked to do at the start because I wasn't getting as many as I did now. But the way that your profile is women shooting up with the teenagers, that's something I would highly recommend, because they want someone that they can connect to. They want to be able to, you know, in their mind, social media makes you so close and so accessible, which wasn't the case, you know, 20 years ago, that they will kind of try as hard as they can to be able to get in. And that's just because they want to feel heard and they want, you know, they know that you understand it. But yeah, understanding for me, I've had to understand what my role is. But for these teenagers to know that, like, they're not alone, and that's what we do by sharing this stuff. Like, you're not alone and hope is real. You just have to keep asking for help, is the things that I'll just say over and over again publicly rather than doing it privately. If people come up to me on the street, totally different story. Like, I will talk to them and, you know, that kind of thing. But social media is really hard. Yeah.
You're not going to find what you are looking for from someone like us. Right? It's not the person that is speaking to a huge crowd on social media. What you need in that moment is to take the hope and the inspiration from what we're giving you and apply it to the conversations that you're having in your real life with people who are right in front of you, and creating that support system around you. It's not us that can solve your problems. All we can do is remind you of the strength that you already have within yourself. Yeah. When I did victim advocacy work, I constantly had to remind myself, I am not the one who is going to fix these wounds. I am the triage and the Band-Aid to get them to where they need to be. And continuously thinking about that as platforms grow, and just as you do more publicly, I think that would be a great message to anybody listening that's in that kind of work too. You're not going to be everything to everyone all of the time. So you sort of have to choose how you protect yourself and make sure that your boundaries are strong and in place.
Yeah, which is so important, especially with how massive the movie is going right now. It's blowing up. And unfortunately, now that you're also associated with me, the teenagers will swarm. Also, they do.
Hey, we want subscribers, rate and review, all of the things.
The teenagers will completely get behind it, but there is there's so much freaking inspiration in your story. I'm so excited to have you on freaking my podcast soon. But the teenagers will continue to contact you because your story is freaking insane, and it's so incredible, and it's been done in a way that relates to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, unfortunately, so many people have so many different crazy stories, and now they've got another person that they can go, oh my gosh, there's hope. So they will gravitate towards you, and that's such an honor and an amazing thing. Just have fun navigating it.
Okay, so I do have a question. Something that I actually have learned recently, and I'm curious if you've experienced this. So I have been drawn towards like student ministry and working with teenagers. When I was a school resource officer, I wanted to be in high schools. I wanted to be with teenagers. And I had a revelation actually a week or two ago where I was like, the reason I want to do this is because I never got to be a teenager. I never got to be a normal teenager. So I'm curious if you have found that working with the youths, as we affectionately refer to the youth population, everyone younger than us, the youths, because we're old now. So I'm wondering if you have found yet that connection of how it heals that inner version of yourself, because I find that so interesting.
Oh, 100%. Like I can do up to like kind of 150 schools a year sometimes and do like full school assemblies. And being able to do all of that 100%, I'm obviously thinking constantly about the teenagers that are in front of me, but also same as you, I didn't really have my teenage years. Like my teenage years were in and out of hospitals. They were on the streets. Like they just didn't exist. And being able to, like I feel like it heals your inner kind of teenage self. And it's been the most kind of rewarding, but also just crazy experience of, and I think I'm still probably the same position of you of still being like, oh my gosh, like this is like what the heck, you get to, and you get to kind of intercede where people teenagers are now and are experiencing things, and you kind of get to play a part in coming in and making sure that they don't go through the same things that we did, and that they get to have, hopefully more of a kind of hope-filled teenage lives than the things that we experienced. And I sometimes will get off a stage and just be like, just cry and be like, oh my gosh, like it is so, it's definitely very healing. But also then like, man, I missed out on so much.
I know.
Vulnerability hangover, as it's affectionately called around here.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, so we have a question for you, because we are Survivor's Guide to True Crime, and we ask all of our guests this. We know Love Island, which is a crime in and of itself. Do you consume true crime?
I really do. I find
you do.
I do.
Okay, tell us all the things.
I do because I think I'm really like intrigued by the psychology a lot behind stuff. And also just like I prefer the stories like yours, Cara, where, people come out of it. But I definitely, like when I first started listening to podcasts, the only podcasts that I was listening to were true crime ones, because I found them so interesting, and would like watch documentaries. But I'm so fascinated by the human brain and the things that can lead people to do these like just absolutely crazy things that I get really like, it's the psychology of it. And it's really weird. It's not something that I did for a very long time, because I would find a lot of stuff triggering. But once I kind of got to the place that I'm in now, I'm like, the world is so crazy, and there's so many like, what happened and how does someone get to this point? So yes, I do consume true crime.
You are one of the first.
Really?
Oh,
Dr. Bailey does. Yeah, Dr. Bailey says she didn't like gore and torture. She likes the psychology, once again, which is the big draw. So I know you already have a huge following, but what would be your call to action to our listeners if they could get involved, or what are some of the key takeaways? Maybe it's surrounding language or things to get involved in, to learn more about ways to reach out and help, because you were so instrumental in being helped and then turning around and doing that for others.
I think that the biggest thing I just want people to understand is to never underestimate the power of your words. I think, for me, one of the biggest things that helped me turn my life around was that I had these core beliefs in me that I was a burden, I was unlovable, I didn't deserve to be here. And to fight, I wrote those things down. And then on the other side of the piece of paper, I wrote down everything that people said or did that contradicted those beliefs. And it eventually started to build up where I just had like kind of hundreds of pages of people being like, I love you. Like, do you have a future? Sometimes small sentences and sometimes big, but sometimes it can feel, especially if you're talking to someone that is really going through stuff, like you're talking to a brick wall, but I promise you they are listening to what you're saying. And at 3 o'clock in the morning when they are struggling, they are hearing that. And just being proactive with, if someone, send them a message in the morning and just tell them that, you love them and you're thinking of them. Just never underestimate the power of your words. And you don't have to go out and like change the entire world, but you have the ability to change someone's world. And that is in your words and your actions.
Beautifully put.
And I heard you in one of your videos say that we don't give ourselves enough credit. And so I think that applies to even our words towards ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
100%. Yeah. That whole video was literally like, so many people would message me and be like, Jazz, you saved my life. And I was like, I did jack all. All I did was go, hey, there's hope. You were the one that fought. You were the one that chose to stay. You were the one that chose to get up every day. And yeah, giving yourself that credit of what you have done and what you have achieved is so important, because a lot of people will attribute like, this movie saved me, this song saved me. And I'm like, they gave you reason to stay. They gave you the ability to fight, whatever it may be. But you saved yourself. Like, you did that. And I think that's really empowering, because it means you can do it again. Like, the next time stuff happens, you can do it, because it wasn't someone else that saved you. It was you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I think it's so empowering and so important, and such a wonderful thing to leave people with.
Well, and I hope that there's someone out here that is listening who needed to be reminded, that you take that reminder and internalize it. So, Jazz, tell us where we can find you. Where can more of our maybe youths, but maybe non-youths listeners find you and follow you and support the causes?
I'm both on TikTok and Instagram, Jazz Thornton. I have if you want kind of the less serious, I've got another TikTok account called Not Jazz Thornton, and that's just my like take the piss personality account, which for some reason has blown up nearly more than my main account. If you want more of like the lighthearted stuff, it's on there. But also Voices of Hope is our organization, which is all lived experience storytelling through kind of videos, written format, all of that kind of thing, which if you just type in Voices of Hope, it should come up anywhere. Yeah.
We'll be sure to include that in our show notes as well. Are there any resources if you are struggling with thoughts or actions surrounding self-harm?
I think that the best thing, especially if you're currently feeling the thoughts with that, is to try and contact either someone close to you or your local helplines. I don't know if you guys have lists of them. We, on the Voices of Hope website, there's international help lists that no matter where you are, you'll be able to find someone that you can talk to. But especially with self-harm stuff, going through the tools that exist, like getting ice cubes, using that, like all of that kind of stuff, it's all accessible online. But always talk to someone. Like, it's one of the most powerful things that you can do is speak up. So
here in the States, the number is 988. You'll be immediately connected with crisis services to be able to talk to someone, a real human on the other side. We'll be sure to include all of these resources in the show notes. But Jazz, I can't thank you enough for being here, for sharing your incredible story, and for being such a light and a positive beam of hope to so many people.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor to talk to you both. And thank you for letting me share my story.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. And we can't wait to talk more in the future behind the scenes and just support everything that you're doing. And we can't wait to see all of your projects that you will, I'm sure, have coming soon.
Survivor's Guide to True Crime is hosted and executive produced by Kimberly Corbin Rourke and Kara Robinson Chamberlain.
If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and free way to help us and help more people find the show.
To learn more about the guests featured or to find resources and information discussed on the show, visit survivorsguidetotruecrime.com.
Thanks for listening.
Well, see you later.